Good morning and welcome to worship at Virginia-Highland Church, where Black Lives Matter, where women's rights are human rights, where children are seen and heard, where no human is illegal, and people of all faiths and people of no faith are welcome here. Thank you for being here worshiping with us in person and those worshiping with us online this morning. My name is Jeff Ayers, and I'm the Director of Worship here, and I am filling in this morning while Matt is out of town on vacation in Vermont. I don't understand vacation in Vermont, but I guess if your daughter's there going to college, that's probably maybe a good idea. In his absence today, we are thrilled to have Candace Rowell, who will be filling in the pulpit today and helping with liturgy. Candace is one of our own members here, a graduate of Columbia Theological Seminary, and on her way to ordination within the United Church of Christ very, very soon, right? Today is All Saints' Day, the day we celebrate those saints that we have lost this past year. We will have some special recognitions for them and sometimes for you to call out those saints that you've lost this year a little bit later in the service.
For many of you know that we are on our way to our 100th anniversary, and we've been collecting different things each month, giving 100 for our 100 years. Last month, we collected blankets, and thank you for all of those who have given. This month, we are collecting sleeping bags to distribute and help out those people who are living outside, and so we are working towards a goal of 100 sleeping bags. You can bring them any Sunday morning, and we'd be so thankful for them.
Today after worship, we have a very important meeting. As you know, we've been working on our vision plan for the past 10 months. You got it in your email about 2 weeks ago, and today after worship, we're going to have a presentation on that, a time for you to ask questions, to share your ideas and your thoughts about that mission plan as we hone that plan in. Next Sunday after worship, we are going to be having a meeting where we vote on and approve this is our mission going forward. So we hope you will all stay today after worship. Move forward. It is going to be online, so those of you worshiping with us online can stay. We're going to continue the live stream all the way through. Snacks time, don't worry, we're going to continue with snack time, but it's going to be up front, so feel free to come up front, get a snack, get something to drink, stay in your pews, and stick around after worship today. It should be very exciting.
Thank you. All right, again, we are so happy to have you all in worship with us today. Those who are joining us online, thank you for being here today on this All Saints Sunday, and thank you to those who are with us. As Jeff makes his way, yes, now please stand as you are able and join in singing our hymn of praise for all the saints. Please join me now for our time of honesty. God, if we're honest, sometimes we would rather just not. God, if we're honest, there are days when we choose to ignore or suppress our own suffering and the suffering of others. God, if we're honest, we can admit that there are times we fail to comfort, shy away from grief and pain, and choose to fix people rather than to see them. God, if we're honest, friends, on this All Saints Sunday, let us give thanks that the God of generation to generation sees our full selves with all of our mistakes and failures and has deemed us worthy. And now may we share in passing the peace of God and one another, knowing that we are truly seen and loved even more for it. Peace be with you.
We'd like to welcome Logan Poole up this morning to give us a voting rights update. You may be seated.
Good morning, everyone. So, as you may or may not know, early voting has ended. It ended on Friday. And in 2018, our last midterm election, about 1.8 million people voted early. This year, Georgia shattered that record. According to the Secretary of State, as of Friday afternoon when polls closed, just over 2.5 million people in Georgia cast their ballot. And I'm proud to say we were part of that. It was our work with 16 volunteers who came in person, who worked hard and showed up and registered voters. We registered voters on the Beltline. We registered voters in Piedmont Park. We registered voters in Truist Park. We went down to In-Town Collaborative Ministries and at their food pantry and registered voters. We made a phone bank of people in this church, and we called people in this church, and we not only registered voters during that time, we also worked to inform people of early voting and how to vote. So it was also a voter education outreach. So I just want to thank all of the volunteers and all of the people who have supported this ministry. It's been a huge success. And I also want to remind people that Tuesday is Election Day, okay? There are still people out there who have not yet voted, and I would encourage you to encourage your friends, encourage your coworkers, remind them that Tuesday is the last day that they can vote. There's one difference on Tuesday: you can't go to your early voting location anymore. Those are gone. You have to go to your precinct, okay? And you find your precinct on your precinct card. And if you don't have your precinct card that you received in the mail, you can also look it up online. There's a QR code there and also a website there. You go, you log in, you download your precinct card, and that's where you vote. So I encourage everyone, keep up the momentum, go out and vote on Tuesday. And I also want to thank the people of our church and then all people who have volunteered to be poll workers. So a number of us in this church are going to be poll workers on Tuesday, so I just ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they're out there working a long day. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Logan. Now is time for some children to come forward if there are any. We're going to combine our modern lesson and our children's lesson this morning because they're going to teach us what's up. Hey, guys. Thanks. So most of us use our senses to kind of determine what's happening around us in the room. What are some of the senses you use? What you got? Hearing, yes. Go ahead, shout it out. Seeing, nice. Thanks, Vivian. Hearing. What else? Taste. Smell. Touch. What's something that you smell right now? Anything? It might be a good thing to be no. What's something that you see? See me? What else do you see around here? Candles. Let's be really quiet. What do we hear? People moving, breathing. We use our senses to know what's happening all around us. How do we know what's happening inside? How do we know what's happening in our inside world? How we feel? Yeah. Yeah, listening to our bodies on the inside. Absolutely. That's what we're going to do together today. So we use our senses to see what's happening all around us. And sometimes, you guys are so smart, we use our senses to know what's happening inside of us. So you guys are going to lead us. You're going to be the example. Everyone's watching, but no pressure because I'm going to ask them to close their eyes. We're going to do a body scan together. Zach, can you give us some really soft music? We're going to do a body scan together. We're going to close our eyes. This is a way that we're going to try and just get in touch with what's happening in our bodies for a minute. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to take in 3 deep breaths, and we're going to just think about our breath going in our noses and out of our mouths. Thinking about our breath going in our noses and out of our mouths. We're going to start at our head. What do we feel in our head? What are we thinking about this morning? What are we worried about? What are we planning? We're not going to judge it. We're just going to see it there. It's part of us. Take a deep breath in. We're going to move to our shoulders. What's happening with our shoulders today? Are they loose? Are they tight, stressed? What's happening with our shoulders? Maybe we'll move them around just a little bit this morning and loosen them up. There we go. Taking a deep breath. We're moving to our chest. How do we feel in our chest? Is there a tightness in our chest? Is our heart beating really fast? Do we feel calm? How are we feeling this morning? What do we bring with us to this place? All right, let's take a deep breath in. Go into our stomachs, to our guts. That's where those butterflies can get us when we're nervous. What's happening in our stomachs this morning? What do we feel inside? You guys are doing great. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to feel our legs. Can we feel them on the bench, on the chair? Feel them weighting us down, connecting us to this place, this moment. This is where we are right now. All right, last deep breath. We let it out, and we move down our bodies to our feet. What are our feet? Are they grounded this morning? Are we here? Are we present? Are we feeling firm? Or are we feeling maybe a little loose in the world today? Let's check in with our bodies this morning. What are we feeling in our bodies? And let's just honor that. All right, we can open our eyes, introduce ourselves back to our senses about what's happening around us. Just be thankful for a moment of pause to feel what's inside of us. You guys did great. All right, you can go back to your chairs. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. God is with you. A reading from Daniel, chapter 7, verses 1 through 7 and 15 through 18. Listen for God's word. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions in his mind as he lay in bed. Then he wrote down his dream and told the sum of these matters. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night the four winds of the heavens stir up the sea. 4 great beasts came up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, and I watched until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on its feet as a human, and a human's heart was given to it. And another appeared, a second, like a bear, and it raised itself up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said to it, Arise, devour much flesh. And after this, I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Then, after I saw in the visions at night a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke into pieces and stamped the rest with its feet. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I approached one of those who was standing by and asked him the truth of all of this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are 4, are 4 kings which shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Hear this ancient witness from yesterday. May the word become flesh in us today.
Matt's on vacation in Vermont. I don't know anything about vacationing in Vermont, but I do know that when I told him this was the lectionary text for the day, that he was kind of nervous to leave me with it. So don't worry, we'll do something. We weren't vacationers who went to Vermont, but my family growing up were avid beachgoers. Now, not the cool kind who sat under cabanas and really looked so relaxed, but the kind that showed up weighted down with floats and toys, dragging our own Walmart beach chairs and umbrellas that were for sure going down the beach later, and you would see us running after them. And we showed up in mass, rowels as far as you could see. We sprawled and we took over part of the beach. Some of my fondest memories of those beach-going vacation days were the days when my dad would join. My dad loathes, hates the beach, but he loves the ocean. And some days in the late afternoon, he would come out when the sun wasn't as intense, and he'd show up with his, I can picture it in my mind, long-sleeve button-up white shirt, wide-brim hat, jeans, tennis shoes, and he'd come out to watch the water. And I remember one day when I was out there swimming, I heard him calling out to me. And when I looked up to find his voice at the shore, I realized that everyone around me was rushing out of the water. And I was just beginning to follow when I heard Dad call out, "Candace, be still. Don't move. Look in the water." My heart was racing. I was the only one left in the water. But I listened, and I looked down, and all around me, splitting off and circling as they moved through the shallow waters, were gigantic manta rays. Just below the surface, this giant school of manta rays were swimming all around me and stirring up the surface with their wings. Everyone on the beach was mesmerized by the sheer magnitude of these creatures and by the stirring up they were causing in the water. I remember my dad looking at me from the shore and smiling. He's a fisherman at heart, and he recognized the manta ray wing tips that can look so much like a shark fin. My dad recognized the beasts that were below the surface, stirring up the waters. And he gave me an opportunity to experience them. When everyone else was running to the shore, my dad gave me the opportunity to be present with these creatures who were stirring up the waters. He taught me not to flee, but to watch the waters. Be attentive to the beasts that are stirring up the sea. Stand among them. Don't try and flee to the shore too quickly, or you might miss it. In our text today, Daniel is learning to watch the waters, to recognize the beasts that our scriptures say are troubling him in his mind and in his body. Many of you know this scripture is often taught as a text of the end times. But perhaps today we can look at it as a text of our own real and present experiences. A text that connects us with what it's like to be in a period of intense grief and loss. Daniel, the writer of this text, is a prophet. He's a dreamer. And he's living in exile from his homeland. He's been ripped away by war, separated from those that he loves, and he's living in Babylon under captivity. He is experiencing a time of profound grief and loss. And visions of some beast that we can relate to are plaguing him in the middle of the night. Isn't that when it happens? Many of us know the shape and images of our own beast. Perhaps our beasts don't have wings or talons or look like bears, or maybe they do. This is a non-judgment-free zone. Perhaps our beasts are more subtle. Perhaps our beasts look like withdrawal, sadness, despair. And dare I say it for myself, perhaps our beasts look like rage. Those terrifying beasts of grief and loss that trouble our minds and bodies and show up in our most vulnerable times to stir the waters. Maybe like Daniel, our beasts show up at 3 a.m. when the world is dark and quiet and there aren't any distractions and to-do lists. Maybe our beasts show up during familiar activities where we feel the loss of those who aren't there so keenly. Birthdays, anniversaries, this season, holidays. The beast of grief and loss, trauma and despair can rear their ugly heads when we're least expecting it. These beasts are feral and strong. Beasts we feel may devour us. Beasts that are terrifying and troubling to our spirits and our bodies. Perhaps many of us can recognize and know the beasts that are within us. And maybe for a moment today, we can let them be present. And we can relate to Daniel. We can relate to feeling our spirit within being troubled. We can relate to feeling terrified. What do we do now? How do we get up in the morning? How do we continue to live and, gosh, perhaps even thrive in the face of our losses? And so, like Daniel, perhaps this morning we need to reach out, seek our community of interpreters, our people, our church, to help us make meaning of these beasts. The scripture says that he is troubled and he runs to his interpreters. I imagine out of breath and terrified. And Daniel says to his interpreter, "What is the truth of these beasts?" And I imagine Daniel's interpreters, his witnesses, like all those people who truly, truly see us, wades out into the sea with him, into the troubled waters of spirit and body. Maybe his interpreters put their arm around Daniel, and together they look beneath the surface. And together they look past the put-together clothes and the smiles and the "I'm doing fine" and "she's in a better place now." They look beneath the surface together. And the interpreter whispers, "Oh yeah, I've seen these before, Daniel. I recognize these beasts. Daniel, these are the horns of grief. And those are the talons of loss. And they're the wings of injustice and despair and sadness, loneliness. I've seen these beasts before, Daniel. I've seen them." We know from our reading this morning that the text ends with the beasts being transformed into kings, into saints of the Most High who possess the kingdom forever and even forever and ever. We know that the beasts of grief and loss are transformed into hope and healing. For Daniel, the kings rising are a sign of healing his land and his exile. We know the ending of the story, and we give thanks for it, and we draw comfort from it. But we can't rush to it. We can't rush to the shore. We can't rush to the ending yet. Together on this All Saints Sunday, we get an opportunity to collectively stand in our troubled waters, to witness in ourselves and in each other the beast of grief and loss that trouble our spirits and our bodies, to see them, to give them space to roar or to fall from our eyes. Whether we're Daniel this year or a witness who can join someone in the waters stirred up by grief and loss, today, church, we watch the waters. We bear witness together to that which is stirred up in us. May we on this All Saints Sunday collectively remember and bear witness to the lives of those that we've lost and the reality of how troubled we are, body and spirit, to be without them today. Remembering and witnessing together is a step towards healing, a step towards the shore. May it be so, church. Amen. In the next few moments together, this opportunity comes to us in a slideshow of some of the lives that we've lost over the past year. Join me in seeing and honoring these saints, knowing that some of them represent grief and loss in this room. Amen.
I told Matt this Thursday, if the congregation wasn't in tears after that, we're doing something wrong. We've now come to our time in the service where we give our tithes and our offering. When the ushers pass by, they pass the plates, feel free to donate. Those are the things that keep our church going, but more importantly, keep our mission going throughout the year. If you give automatically, you're a saint. Drop this in the offering plate as it goes by. We also ask that whether you're here for the first time as a visitor or whether you're here every week, if you'll pass the red pad that's in the pew down and sign it so that we will know of your presence here today. Thank you so much. I will ask ushers to come forward as we accept our gifts and offerings this morning. As we gather at this table today, we are joined with a cloud of witnesses. We remember those saints from our lives that are gone from this earth, but still hold a place in our hearts. Don Graves, Helen Peck, Jack Richard Lewis, Kathy Hughes. Nathan Hunter. David Lacatelle. David Fleming. Mark Crouch. We would like to invite any of you to say aloud the names of those that you have lost this year. Thank you. You may be seated.
On the night of his betrayal, Jesus took the bread and he gave thanks and he broke it and he invited his disciples to truly see what was happening. This is my body which is broken for you. Eat and remember me. In the same way, he took the cup, saying, "This is the cup of my new covenant. Drink it and remember me."
Glory forever. Amen. At Virginia-Highland Church, this is not our table, it's God's table, and anyone is welcomed here, no matter if you're baptized or not, no matter if you're a questioner or if you're a believer or the biggest saint among us walking on earth. In each basket, you will find a piece of bread that you can dip in the juice. There's also a gluten-free option that includes the juice and a gluten-free wafer. There's grape juice in the cup. There's grape juice in the little cup, so all can feel welcome. We ask you to come forward and share God's blessing.
Everlasting God, we adore the wonders of your grace, made manifest in all your saints. We acknowledge you to be the source of their holiness. Fill us with your love as we set forth from this table on our earthly pilgrimage, and bring us at the last to your heavenly banquet through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
We ask that you stand if you are able and join in our closing hymn, In Times of Great Decision.
Go forward on this morning, watching the waters, giving time and space for your griefs and your loss, seeing the griefs and loss of those around you. Go forward this morning as the church, holding one another, being with one another, seeing one another. Go forward in peace. May it be so.
And now snacks are going to be served up front. Feel free to stay in your pew or come down a little bit closer. We'll be with you in just 1 second.
You got to go down here too. Vision Plan Summary. Yeah.
Good morning. If you would go ahead and take your seats or pause where you are for one moment. MJ is going to offer a word of prayer. So could we have silence as MJ offers a word of prayer? They're not listening. But no, you're already on. Could we have your attention for one moment for MJ to offer a word of prayer? Go ahead.
Jeff, is this on?
Ready.
If I can get everybody's attention, please. All right, I'm gonna open us up in prayer first, and then we'll start with the vision presentation. So if everyone will bow their heads with me. Gracious Lord, thank you. Thank you for this church that's just not a place, but it's your people. Your people that you have called to be in Virginia-Highlands, a community that has seen a lot of change, a community that makes up many facets of you. Lord, may this time be a time of honesty, a time of heart, a time of vision. May you speak with us and through us as we continue on this journey of being who you called us to be for the next 100 years at Virginia-Highland Church. In your son's name we pray, amen. So thanks everybody for coming. The purpose of this is to be able to have conversation and discussion before we go to vote on the vision plan, which impacts our budget overall. So today with me, so by the way, there's a QR code up here. If you have your phone, you can scan that. It will download the whole entire 36 pages of the vision plan, which we'll be referring to here on out, but we do have Cliff Note versions for that. So I won't be doing this by myself. So my name is Michael Jackson. Everybody just calls me MJ. There's new faces. Yes, I was actually named after him thanks to my father. I can sing and dance with a little bit of tequila. Also helping out with me is Faye. Faye's over there is also part of the parish council. And then Janice over here, which is part of the conversions team, who's also been working on the plan overall together. So I'm gonna hand it over to Janice, who's gonna walk us through how we got to this point.
Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. This parish council engaged with Convergence, the consulting team, and we were fortunate enough to have the CEO, Reverend Cameron Trimble, who is a member of the Virginia-Highland Church. Do I need this?
You're good.
Okay. As our leader through this process. This process started last January with a congregational survey. We had 2 online webinars where everyone could join in and participate. We had a Futures Lab here downstairs to imagine what church can be in these days and times. That was the lemon bar event. Some energy came out of that. Something that probably, there were other aspects as well. Small group small group discussions through the Lenten season. Is Kay here, Kay Johnson? No, she led a session that gave a very important perspective to our small group that I carried with me through the writing process that I think influenced the way we think. So even in small groups, we were tuned into what the church was sensing and feeling about where we're headed. We had community interviews. That was a spark. People from the Futures Lab who were energized and really participated in that work volunteered. Some of them volunteered to step in and do some community interviews out in the Virginia-Highlands and came back with really interesting reports and healthy reports on what church can mean in this community. So I thought that was we took a lot of information from the interview reports. Thank you to those who did those, when we were discerning our themes. In August, we had draft 1. It had 5 themes. I don't know where it went back to, but it came back. Matt felt very strongly about pulling things down, simplifying. And then we took the plan, probably version 2, to parish council. And there was some need for something truly inspirational. And at the last minute, Cameron came through with the Wisdom School document that you see in the appendix. By then we were on version 3 and we were not rewriting again. So we refined version 3, which is the document that you have been presented. And there's appendix to explain Cameron's Wisdom School idea. So the purpose today is for us, Matt, Yusinia, and I did most of the writing. Cameron was a fantastic listener. Every piece of material that came in, she can compose on the spot. So what you're seeing is an accumulation of all of that inspiration. This week, we're here asking for those of you who've read, who've been inspired, who see things in this document that are either missing or need to be enhanced or are troubling or you're concerned about, to bring those to us now. One final opportunity of yours to participate. We'll refine, tighten up the plan this week, and then next week we vote. Woohoo. I think Matt has been watching my Facebook posts and is taking over some of my language here. But yeah, it's been a long process. So I believe there is some divine inspiration in it, and I hope that you have read it with the idea of where is the gospel work that a church does together, and where do I fit into this, and is there a place for me to grow with the Spirit in this plan? And a big thank you to Cameron, who is an inspiration in herself. Any questions for me right now? MJ, vision plan summary.
All right, I get the fun goal of trying to introduce all this. So when you really think about Virginia-Highland Church and who we are, and when we really sat down, and I remember when this was presented to the parish council, I was actually on a plane when I got the original document of the vision plan, and I was like, okay, this is a lot. And really trying to break it down into one word is love. When you really think about our 3 pillars, it's all engulfed in the word love. So when you really think about the first one, which is loving one another, when you think about loving one another and what does that really mean, it means a couple of things when you break down the whole glob together. First one is matching our members to the ministry. So what does that mean? To kind of summarize that, it really means we all have very unique gifts that God has given us. So how do we match your unique gift in with Virginia-Highland Church? So whether you're an artist, whether you're a person who knows how to code, how do we match your gift with that? So how do we do that? Also, onboarding. What does that mean? It means taking maybe a seasoned volunteer here at Virginia-Highland Church, pairing it with you, might be a new volunteer. With a new volunteer, I gotcha. With a new volunteer and really helping you grow in ministry overall here at Virginia-Highland Church. The next one is empowering leaders, identifying and removing obstacles of leadership. This means really stepping up and looking at how do we identify future leaders here at Virginia-Highland Church? How do we give them the support they need to carry out actions, to carry out the vision or the missions that we have here at Virginia-Highland Church in a very strategic way. Also removing barriers. Sometimes there's a lot of bureaucratic processes sometimes within the church, but how do we remove some of those barriers to allow ministry to truly grow and flourish overall? And the third goal is helping people grow in faith, love, and service with community care, hives, and other interest groups. What does this mean? Is there was a loud call from this congregation when we did surveys on how do I grow deeper with other people within Virginia-Highland Church. And so this means how do we grow together as a community, whether it's within your hives. I know I have a hive leader right now that I feel like the Spirit personally speaks to this person because every time I'm going through a rough patch, I get one of the most special cards in the mail that just hits me at the right moment with me and my family and just really lifts me up more and more. It could be delivering cupcakes to somebody who's hurt, or just walking through, or a random telephone call to a person that really helped build a community, or go grab a beer or a coffee or a wine, or go sit in the park and hang out. That's what it means. So how do we grow a deeper faith community truly with one another, and also different interest groups. I know when we talked about this, one I brought selfishly to the parish council as an interest group on parents who have teenagers as an interest group, because we need support for one another. It's a different ball game out there. So that's what it means when we really look at, when we talk about loving for one another, how do we continue to grow as a church in those three pillars that's there. With that, in loving, next one, loving our neighbors. Strengthening our role in a community hub as a gathering church, park with the dogs. What does this really mean? To break it down, how do we get involved in Virginia-Highlands at the end of the day? With Virginia-Highlands, very diverse neighborhood. A lot of people, when we interview the community, they actually meet with us, but they are coincide with our beliefs here at Virginia-Highland Church. The big thing is they don't want to be part of institutional church. Does that make sense? So how do we take our ministry and not call it ministry per se, but how do we connect with the community? So this might be looking at getting a volunteer, a person, actually a staff person who's skilled with connecting, aka a volunteer coordinator or a marketeer or community liaison within the community to help us connect with the community. It also looks at how do we get involved with some of the community activities, just not, the things that happen in the spring, but trick-or-treating just happened. How do we open our doors for kids to do trick-or-treating here within the Virginia-Highlands neighborhood, or other activities that happen within Virginia-Highlands? How do we connect with that community and truly be one with the community? And then I'm gonna hand it over to Janice to go in deeper on the Center for Wisdom Studies.
I think having Cameron at the lead of this was very special for us. Those of you who follow her writing, follow her work, know that this is the place that she is in now. The work of convergence. Cameron interviews wisdom leaders from all over the world. In her last book of devotionals, it was 60 devotionals, right smack in the middle of it, she has a conversation with a university president and says, "How does your program help me to become more wise, be more present, and be more kind?" And these are the things that she thinks is important in education. And then she goes on to write that the perfect place for this to happen is in a congregation, right? So I think with her work and her pilot's big picture view, I'm a big picture person, but Cameron even goes higher than I do with her perspective. And the word that Kay Johnson came up with was, rather than speaking of us being inclusive, she would like to see us become expansive. So I carried that word expansive with me through my thinking of this vision plan. And at the end, Cameron came up with the pilot's view of, let's take Virginia-Highlands area that we've been looking at and look at what's special just a little bit wider. What do we have in Atlanta area that would help us become more wise, more kind, more present? And we already had a lot of meditation written in and being together and knowing each other. But the being wise part, we already have schools here. We have the Carter Center. We have 2 universities, 3 seminaries. So let's take advantage of those. Let's be out in those communities. Let's get those experts and connect with them. So we connect with one another, we connect with our neighbors in the Virginia-Highland community, and then we grow in wisdom by connecting with these other agencies. Made sense, and it was inspirational. I think Cameron understands, and my husband and I know, that this church has already taken the gospel way. We are out there. That's why we came. You already have the foundation for this. You have boots on the ground doing justice work, right? You've already done the hard process that other churches cannot do to become an O&A community, and not just become a church that says we are open and affirming. You're out. You're in the Pride Parade. You service agencies of the LGBT community in this church. So I think Cameron understood because she knows your foundation and thought that this church is capable of pulling this off. Even in a very slow start, she knows we have an anniversary going on. She knows we have infrastructure issues. But she said, this is something you should aim towards. So that's where we are with the School of Wisdom. Who's next? Faye.
No.
know that Max does all this good work up here?
Does everybody know what?
Thank you, Max, for staying and doing that good work.
I don't know that.
So how are we
I don't
going to
know,
do this? It's going to be incredible,
Is that yours?
really. How are we going to do this? This is going to be incredible. We need to know how we're going to share our resources. One of the things we need to do is we need to increase our long-term financial health with a stewardship team. Believe it or not, we're one of the few churches, I believe, on the earth without a stewardship group. We have a finance committee. We can tell you pretty much down to the dollar and the penny how we spend it all. We got a personnel committee that supports the staff and reviews them. But stewardship, we kind of just let that hang out there. That's who we are and have been. But we kind of need to pull that together and do some more talking about what that is and how we're going to do that. One of the things we're going to do, if we vote on this vision, let's be very clear, is we're going to launch a capital campaign. We are talking about raising $1.5 to $2.5 million by hiring a group by the name of Clottey and Associates who will cost us some money. They're about $80,000 or about 5% of whatever they raise. So that's something that we will continue to talk about, and what's that going to look like, and do we really have that capability? And I'm not going to give to that kind of conversations, and let's not make that the whole conversation today. But that is going to be part of it, because we do need to do some work at home in order to have this vision live here. What's that kind of work we have? We need to renovate the parsonage for affordable housing. The parsonage, if you don't know, is the house right next door here. You can tell which house it is in the Virginia-Highlands. It's the one that's falling apart a bit. Kind of looks a little dilapidated on the outside. Wait till you get the tour of the inside. We currently have people living there. In the different rooms, we have 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and then we have the basement, which is kind of eked out for living. It's not a great spot, but it is available for living, and we currently have somebody there from in-town collaboration who's waiting for full-time housing. We want to renovate that and make it 4 to 6 rooms and lower the rent, which is currently $650 for a room, to $425. Who will those people be? They will not be homeless people right off the street. They will be people who need housing, workforce housing. Think of the restaurants in the area, the people who wash your dishes. Think of the people who wait on your tables. Think of the people who work at the different grocery stores or wait on you in other service industries. They need housing where they can get to their work. Oftentimes they can't afford cars, so this will allow them to be where they might even be able to walk to work, or at least catch the public bus system that goes right down our street. Those 4 rooms, we're going to open up the attic area and make it 6 rooms, add a bathroom, renovate the kitchen, just make it a much better, sounder place to live, a welcoming house. We currently have a debt of $327,000. That money was borrowed over the last 5 years. It put new air conditioning systems that are now on the roof, and it changed the plaza outside to be a much more welcoming space. We need to pay that off. Each year now, we put $24,000 a year as a payment. If we pay that off, we have $24,000 a year more to do the Wisdom School, to do other kinds of ministries. And we want to renovate and repair the church building to better serve our community, the mission and ministries. That's going to be $1 million at a base. Why? We have lots of opportunities. We could fix the beautiful sanctuary windows that are currently rotting on the outside and leak. We could repair the leaky steeple. We could remodel the kitchen and fellowship hall, which really could use that, not only because it would be a more welcoming place, but it would be a more sound place with better electricity, etc. We need new crash bar doors for the sanctuary doors so we can get out of here if there's an emergency. The cushions for the pews. That is not just to make you more comfortable, but the sound issue we have here is there's nothing to absorb the sound. That will help us with sound. A sprinkler system maybe, an electrical upgrade, a plumbing upgrade, replace some of the carpeting, especially in the offices, upgrade the offices, replacing the tiles on the second and third floors, and there's even a longer list, believe it or not, that I'm not going to put you through. But there is enough to do that would make this a more comfortable, more welcoming, more sound building, because we're looking at another 100 years here. This is our space, our place, and we want to invite the community in. Let's make it so that they can be here with us together. We're all up for question and comments. This is your time to ask whatever you'd like. Please feel free to stand up. Jeff's got a microphone to help us hear you. Jim.
But Matt's retirement, have we decided on that? Has that been handled so we could
We are starting
make
to
sure he
handle
doesn't
that.
leave?
We have started to handle that. When we have our annual meeting, you'll see that we've plugged some money in the budget for it this year. It's still a small amount, growing. That may be as we are, no longer putting money into the building, that will be some more money that can be diverted toward caring for staff. Yes, he has. He understands that. Matt is, to be honest with you, as chair of the finance committee and chair of the personnel committee currently, I talk to him about this regularly. Matt is dedicated to this and really feels that he is called to be here, and that part of his call is making sure that the building is sound and welcoming, and that the staff is well cared for, including him himself. So we're good with that.
Two things, one a question and one maybe an editorial change. But under the action steps, loving our neighbors, by spring 24, becoming regular participants, and that's basically hooking onto the district stuff. Should that be spring 23? Because it seems like a fairly easy, low-hanging fruit to put off for an additional year. That's the easy question. The second question is, I love the plan. It requires a lot of bandwidth. Are we thinking about hiring an associate minister to fill in a lot of this space, working with congregation development and things like that? This is a lot of bandwidth to put on existing staff, I believe.
Yes, we are planning to hire staff. What that staff will look like, that has not totally been determined. We have talked about having someone come in and really up our social media presence and up our plugging people in, a volunteer coordinator, and possibly an associate minister. It kind of depends on how we end up doing with our fundraising, to be honest. Currently in the budget for next year, there is plugged in a spot for one person, which might be split into a couple, and then I would hope we would then increase staff after that.
I'd like to piggyback on what Ray just said, and that. So yes, we do need more staff. We're a staff person short right now. For the last 30 plus years, this church has employed an associate pastor. That associate pastor oftentimes has been part-time, and there have been much of that time that we've had 2 part-time associate pastors. These are ordained people that are skilled in ministry. Sometimes they're younger people. They're just out of college. One of the gifts that this church has is the ability to employ them right out of college. You know, I can remember back 20 years ago where if you were gay or lesbian, those jobs were pretty darn rare for you to get a job in the degree program that you've just spent 6 to 8 years getting. So that's a gift that we have that we can offer. On that same note, from the ministerial side, Matt needs some help in that too, because up until just a couple of years ago, we haven't had an associate pastor, which puts additional burdens on Matt. He's the only person here that can actually marry someone. He's the only person that can baptize. He's the only person that can consecrate the elements from staff. So you'll notice that we have people up here this morning. Faye was gracious enough to come consecrate the elements because that's something that we believe in. So in part of that positioning, I would really, really encourage us to that one, at least one person, another person that's ordained and credentialed in ministry.
I hear you, Jeff.
We've had that conversation already, right?
No, I am totally supportive of that.
First of all, thank you to all of you who did this work, because I know it was a tremendous amount of work, so thank you very much. One question I had was, in terms of the community interviews that were done, I saw the list of things that they were searching for in terms of things they were concerned about. Did we also ask them what they would attend if we offered it, so that or is that something that would come later? Because if we want to be a center for this community, we want to make sure that what we offer is because everyone's busy, right? And if we offer something on a Friday night, are they going to come or are they not? So I just want to make sure that second piece has been addressed or will be.
I think those of you who did the interviews, I don't know that that was a specific question. If we offered this, would you come? It was more of, how can the church be more a part of the community? I was at Summerfest, and a band came up with a group of friends and family, towards this way, and said, "That's our community in church." And I said, "Wow, what's it like inside?" And he said, "I don't know, I've never been in." So he identified this church as his community church, even though he had never been in it. So I don't know that we ever get a man like that into this church, and I don't know that that's our work. But we are considered a part of this community. So how do we do our gospel work out in that community? We're on the porch. We offer this space during Summerfest for refreshments. And we had people who dress up like fairies to say, "Hey, Virginia-Highland church members are with you in celebrating Halloween." So I think that's the spirit of us, even though most of us don't live here, the spirit of us being with the community when they're celebrating and playing and engaging with one another. They'd like to know us. And how do we do that better? So it's more of us being a part of it. We're not necessarily offering activities here. In the building, maybe not, but going to the park and having worship with the dogs, with your family, and putting the dogs to the park. Yes.
If you
We're having a concert. The school is having a concert. We might be here.
If you read it, we also talk about hiring a staff person that does the community. So that would kind of be phase 2. So phase 1 was, what does this church kind of mean in Virginia-Highland Church? Phase 2 is, if the vision is approved, we have a staff person, if you read it, kind of go through how do we link up. And that's kind of that phase 2 part of what would you go to. But then also, when we talked about the Center of Wisdom, that's also part of that connection of what would they attend. So part of that Center of Wisdom is us connecting with other established organizations within the city of Atlanta or individuals. So it could be, is it meditation and prayer? Is it figuring out the life of the cosmos? Is it having deep conversations about parenthood or what does Christianity really say about homosexuality or blah, 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 right? Like those type of topics, if you break it down. So that's where we would kind of connect with some of those subjects you're asking about, would come from either that staff person helping us identify that or the center of wisdom that we're looking at.
Also, some other churches in the Atlanta area do something like this where they bring in top grade speakers that people want to come here. I know we have tickets to go to Trinity Hills on Thursday to hear Brian Stevens. I know they had over 1,000 people sign up for that. You know, that is something I personally would like and hope to see us do, bring in those type of justice speakers to give people access to them that can't get access anywhere else.
When I heard you say, I connect with the Spirit when I'm out on a hike. Sorry. If this church has a group that goes with you hiking to connect with the Spirit, we might have somebody who plugs us into neighborhood imitation media to say, hey, Virginia-Highland has a group that goes hiking, and these and such places, join us. And that's our way to bring our connection with the Spirit into the community. That's how I think about that.
Further answer your question, in the interviews that I did, they were really clear that they would like to see us involved with them and not the opposite. So that's a great way to start. And these guys have already started doing that. Hey, can I go over here first?
As we're looking at the vision goals and ABC, are they ordered in priority, just as we kind of think about what the budget is and where the funding's going and what the vision is? Are we thinking about them in a priority, in a timeline, kind of these are our first goals that set us up for the next goal that set us up, just as we're also looking at where funding is going in the next year?
From a funding perspective, we will have the campaign. I'm not sure when it's going to kick off. We still have to make arrangements. Well, first we have to vote on it. And then we have to make arrangements with this team that we want to hire and see when they're available, et cetera. But as that gets firmed up, that will help us plan, for example, when the parsonage can be done and when the church building can be done. It's not all going to happen at one time, and that's going to take a couple of years, I perceive. The parsonage is going to be our first goal.
We also talked about grant writing. I mean, these plans are beyond a capital campaign and the giving from a small congregation. We need all hands on deck. All you business planners, all you finance people, all you grant writing people with grant writing experience, that's part of the connections. So if we're doing renovations, and we all used to have a team here, I understand, I see evidence of a green team. Now's the time to bring it back because we want to be an environmentally friendly congregation. So there's grants available for those kind of things.
Sarah, you're up.
So it was more a question about the firm that we're hiring for the capital campaign. Have they submitted a proposal to us about how we're going to do this?
Yes.
And is that available since this is going to be big and necessary?
Yes, they have. We interviewed two different teams.
She's asking, is there a plan from the fundraising group about how that will happen? And is that something they can see since it's going to be voted on?
We interviewed 2 different teams. The interview group chose this team. They were both very good. They would come in and do a 10-week, very intensive campaign, which would include visits with every person in the congregation. And those visits would be designed around your schedule, and probably Matt would be part of a lot of those, so that means we'll have to be supporting Matt during that time. And they will do some study into us. You know, they have all those charts and things. I'm married to a fundraiser, so I kind of get this. And they can kind of look at us and say what they think our goal will be, and we'll bring back that to everyone and make that decision together.
What is the current interest rate on the 327,000, and what will the interest rate be on the $1 million or $1.5 million, or will it be interest, or will the 80,000 cover that?
We don't anticipate loaning. We do not anticipate having to take out a loan for any of the upcoming, the 80,000, that we're going to borrow that money from ourselves to start that, and then that will be included in what the fundraising is. So if they're going to make $1 million, they got to make $1,080,000 to get paid. Okay? And then the current interest rate is 4.5%. And those are 5-year loans. One's, they are ARMs, because that's the way the United Church of Christ Building and Loan Fund does them. They're done in 5-year increments, and one comes up this coming year. We've already started discussions with them if the rate's going to raise or not. I don't know. I haven't gotten that. They haven't decided. Their board hasn't made that decision. And the other one has 3 more years before it's negotiated again.
Thank you.
Hooray for not borrowing any more money.
To piggyback on that question, the company that would be hired, they would be targeting just the congregation, or would they be also doing a capital campaign fundraising within the community that we would be hoping to serve and join with?
No, it will be just this congregation.
Okay. Is that a pretty typical price for them to hit up the people in here who already know we need to pay for this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Is that, I mean, that just seems very expensive to be hitting up the people who are sitting in here right now who know what we need to pay to make this happen.
It was the same price for both firms, even though they actually had very different ways they did this. What this allows for is a full-time staff person to be here running this campaign for the 10 weeks, plus the preparation before and the pulling it together afterwards. So it's a full-time, it's one dedicated person, staff-wise, for, at least, I'm guessing 4 months.
We're not looking for $1 million to come just from everybody in the congregation, because that's where I kind of feel where you're headed.
Well,
okay, so yeah. So yes, the majority probably will come from us, but it's also going back to what Janice said, using your resources, right? So like I work for a company, and I know if we were to do a building fund, there's a construction company that might be able to give a grant that's based here in Atlanta that I can give them a contact to help out. Does that make sense? So it's really just not us doing that, it's also our network, right? Like how big is the web of also the people within the congregation?
Yeah, he started this conversation with us doing it in-house, and they came and hit me up.
Yeah, just so you know, we already have done a lot of research with the city as to whether there are any grants available to do the house, and there are not. And we've really looked into that, so that's why it's really on us to fix this house and provide this kind of housing.
I will tell you, this firm also went to a local church in the Atlanta area They were trying to raise $1 million. The church said they couldn't raise, was it $1 million and a half? They couldn't do it. When they got to their goal, they were over $4 million.
Jeff. I just want to start by, again, thanking you guys for all of this work that you've done. I know it's can be a grind, and it's a lot of synthesis, and now you're sort of presenting it and being vulnerable with all of us sort of looking at it and asking you these questions. So thank you. Thank you so much, y'all. One of the things that's popped up, I'm kind of facilitating our live stream as well. I'm sorry, I can do this. Each Sunday, about a quarter of the folks who are worshiping with us are worshiping online. And so they sort of bubbled up even just now to say, we hope that you, as a team and us as a church, are thinking about how to make sure that those folks aren't left behind in this work, because we are definitely talking about community-based, but maybe even to capitalize on our ability to connect with folks who are either away for the week or who are regularly worshiping with us online. So I just wanted to put that out there to y'all. I know that y'all are looking at so many factors, but I just wanted to name those folks who have really connected with our community virtually. Thanks, y'all.
Let me assure the people who are online and who may still be with us that they have been a part of the discussion, because part of upgrading the building is allowing us to have to be able to integrate with that community, not just in the sanctuary, but if there's a study group, allowing them to be there in a meaningful way, not just on a little screen on a laptop at the table, or having a Wi-Fi system in the church. Imagine that. Just ways that we can bring people in to be with us. Having people, how about being able to be traveling like MJ does frequently and be a reader from one of his hotels in Miami, because he could come to us on the screen. Right now, we're kind of right here. We have to do what we can here. So that will help expand our world. So we have lots of ideas.
So one of the questions from online is, how do the themes connect with people online? So for the people online, just everybody in the congregation, that's why we really also have a staff person that we've said with social media, and really connecting with social media. It's not a person who just posts, it's also engagement. I know, I'll just use my company for example. We have a whole team, so we have people who post, but then we have people who are just responsible for what we call digital community engagement, right? So that's a thing now. Like, you can actually get a degree in that because that's where technology is right now. So when it comes to the different goals, yes, we will have an in-person version, but also a digital version, probably not with everything, but we will try with most things of how can people from around the country, whether you know it or not. I just did it for Matt, and I'll share it with Parish Council. I just ran a digital footprint of Virginia-Highland Church and where we have watchers. So believe it or not, California is one of our largest states that we actually have online digital imprints. Massachusetts is, Pennsylvania, Florida. So we do have people from just not here in the state of Georgia, but from all around the United States. So part of that is, how do we connect you digitally with the Virginia-Highland Church community here?
There's one here.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an expert at nothing. However, I have been around for a while. I see one person who might be close to me, okay? But the important thing for us to remember here is everything we've talked about is based and planted here at this church. It is based on the success of this church here. We have made a bad recovery from the pandemic. We are still at 50% or less. That's a fact we have to face. So I encourage each of us to remember what I heard on a renovation show the other day. The romanticism of all this is wonderful, and I love it, and it's exciting. But the reality of it is that it's a lot of work. Now, I'm excited about it. I think we can do it. But one of our first jobs is to continue to build the base from which we're going to work. Let's try our best to get people to come back into the church. Virtual is good, but also, I just learned the other day, which institution in the nation is doing worse with virtual reality? The religious institutions. So we have to face the fact that we still seem to be doing better in person. So let's work on that, because I have a great awe for what we've just been presented with. I have a great admiration for the hard work that Faye and MJ and all of the other people have put into this. Let's support them. Let's encourage our friends, those people who haven't been around for a while, to come back and see the excitement of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Something that struck me, I read through the 25 pages 3 times. And each time I tried to focus on a little different aspect of it. But when you go back to the very core of what is this church about? We do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. And when I flipped to the latter pages, to the appendix about the Wisdom Project, it feels to me like there definitely could be a disconnect between our 3-part vision and this expanded vision, which takes on kind of a feeling of being wonderful and great, and also very academic and dramatically written. That's not intended to be any kind of an insult or complaint. It's just, I think, in the process of pursuing any major thing like this for this little church, and I remember when there were about 24 of us here in church on Sunday, and yet it's still here, so yeah, there's something going on. But I think for some people that core spirit and mission is something that's going to change pretty radically. The underlying belief of it is the same, but the expression of it is going to look very, very different. And the casual and easy way of just deciding you're going to do something and grabbing 1 or 2 people and make it happen, those days are probably over. Because if you look at these 25 pages, there is minute detail that hasn't even yet been fleshed out. So it's a real different look and feel. And when you're talking like Candace was saying about check what's going on around you and then see what's going on inside you, and how do you reconcile those 2 things? I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this is a real different path. And I think it's a good thing that in looking at the demographics of the people in our congregation and our area, yeah, there's a lot of highly educated, financially stable people and younger people who are more transient, but hopefully the people who are moving out are replaced by the young people like these realtors that bring folks into the neighborhood. And that's a great thing, but it's going to have a very different look and a different feel. And just so long, it's hard for people to change sometimes, but I think we should acknowledge the fact that that's very likely going to happen if we're going to be a center for wisdom and connected in all these ways outside our little bubble here. So, you know, we can look forward to that and just embrace it or not.
I'm going to tag into that. Does the current mission of Micah 6:8 still apply? Is the current mission of Micah 6:8, do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with God, still apply?
Absolutely, it does. I don't see this wisdom school replacing a community church. I flat out asked Cameron at one point, do you see the Virginia, she said it never became a community church. And I said, do you see this church becoming a community? She said, absolutely, it is and should be and should grow into that role. I see the wisdom school as, Jesus didn't send his disciples out without some training. Like our Janice Lemieux posted about, she's out there, she's getting battle wounds from the justice work she's doing. She's getting spit at, right? She has the armor, the spiritual armor on to do the justice work. We have to do that. Jesus teaches us how to do that. He went away. He retreated into prayer and rest and reconnection with the Spirit before he went out. He didn't send the disciples out without their armor, their spiritual armor. I see the wisdom school as a branch of our ministry. It's something that we can grow into to bring new, fresh ideas into how to grow in the Spirit so that we can do the Micah work, continue to do it more effectively in a world that's even more crazy than it's been. Does that make sense? It's just not blended, maybe because we didn't take the time to rewrite it again. That may be.
I think it all works together. Our church has evolved because I've been one of those people, which 25 people in the pew here at Virginia-Highland Church for a while. And our ministry has evolved. I'm one of those people that less than 5 years ago, people know I travel a lot. It feels good to be back this Saturday because don't have kid stuff and I'm not on the road. But I get to worship at 30,000 feet, which I've done numerous times because we now have an online platform that didn't exist before. That was an evolution here at Virginia-Highland Church, if you really think about it. If you think about, for me, a lot of people don't know, we live in North Marietta, technically Kennesaw. We pass hundreds of churches to come all the way down here. But to find an affirming church for my family is very hard in Cobb County. So to have a safe place like this for my kids to come as they are, to question their spirituality, to question God, to question things as a safe place, for two men who are married together with kids feel safe in not worrying about some church's values that we have to sit quietly in the pews, that's evolution. The one thing that drew me to this church was some of the history that when I read about, first female pastors, they get kicked out of a congregation. The history of this church and being transformation is huge. So I think as we are a little bit scared that we might change, that we might be a little bit different, that's why in the prayer I said, where we go for the next 100 years. What excited me about this vision plan is this church has a history of being change makers, history makers, doing things differently in ministry to connect with those who are questioning. Because when we say all are welcome, do we really mean all are welcome, no matter where you are on life's spiritual journey? And I really believe this vision plan is that. It's really welcoming for anybody, whether I believe in God, questioning God, or I'm walking hand to hand with my Lord and Savior. I feel like this vision plan is for everybody has a place. So I was like you, when I first read that, I was like, what is this thing? This is what is this? But when I really started to dive into it, and you can even ask Faye at Parish Council, I questioned it a little bit too. I really started to see, wow, this is a questioning, helping people answer some questions that may be out there. When you talk about the cosmos, I'm dealing with this right now with one of my kids who's there. I believe there's a God, there's a creator, but where do I go from there? It's a daily conversation in our house, and what does that look like? for him to have a place to maybe go to answer those questions or see other people who have those same type of questions and they're along that same journey, I think that's what this is for. It's also for this next generation that's out there. Because when you look at Virginia, like you said, the real estate agents are bringing in the new generation into community. So with that, we also need to change as a community. As our community change, we need to change and grow. Not losing who we are. We are still Micah. We are still walking, loving, mercy, humble. We're all of that. But it might just look a little bit different within the next 100 years. Does that make sense?
Jane, the first draft I saw of that was called the School of Wisdom. And I thought, well, that's not going to work because that sounds like we've got the wisdom that we need to pass out, and that's not right. That won't work. School of Wisdom Studies now sounds like we've got some stuff that we need to learn, global citizenship, things we can learn from the Carter Center. And I very much see that as walking humbly with God. I think it fits in with the third leg.
Jane, let me just throw in, because I'm not at a high-level person and I'm not at a low-level detail. I kind of like in the middle, kind of like what's going on here. And my idea of what's going to happen is somebody is going to have a good idea and they're going to grab a couple other people and there's going to be staff to support you to do it and to help you connect with other people that you don't even know that you can grab to make it a little bit deeper and wider. And that's what I see happening. So instead of it's just you and me, it's you and me and Larry, and maybe Betsy we throw in there sometimes. You know, there'll be people we don't know that want to be part of it but aren't asked because we don't. And that's what I see happening. And wisdom studies, I'm sorry guys, it's just, you know, it's adult education with a new name. And it's better and wider and beautiful. But it is what it is, you know, and it's always been wisdom studies.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, problems?
We cannot thank you enough for this time and for your reading of it. And if you haven't read it yet, there's still another week. We vote next week. I hope you'll be here for that as well. And if you have any other questions, contact Matt. He will be back, I think, tonight or tomorrow morning. Any of us are available. Anyone on parish council who has voted to support this, please reach out. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you
very much. Thank you. Thank you. Also with you.